I think it's kind of funny how we go to college for 4 years, but no one ever actually teaches us how to make the perfect resume and actually get a job. At least I wasn't taught how to do that. I don't know, maybe I missed something. But that's okay because today I'm going to teach you how to create the perfect resume that will actually get you hired. Hey, what's up guys? My name is Jessica and I'm a marketing and communications specialist. I graduated college in May of 2020 and we are doing a series of career and post-grad videos. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that right now because we are really pumping out the post-grad career tip videos over here. But anyway, for today's video, I'm going to teach you how to create the perfect resume, especially if you're in an industry like mine. So anything like marketing, communications, PR, social media, anything like that, all of these tips will apply to you. Even if you're not in an industry like that, I can guarantee you most of these tips will be super helpful. So tip number one is to show your creativity in your resume. There are so many people in this industry and it's very competitive. That's no secret. So when you see a resume like this versus when you see a resume like this, it's pretty easy to decide which one you're going to throw out and which one you're actually going to look through. I saw a girl on TikTok named Jenna, and she actually applied for a job at TikTok and made her resume TikTok themed. It looked pretty cool, and she actually went viral and got the job, so that's just two major bonuses right there. But that's just a prime example of how showing your creativity on your resume can really make you stand out. Tip number two is to tailor each resume that you have for the position that you're applying for, kind of like how you would do a cover letter. If you have a bunch of experience that maybe isn't really relevant to the job that you're applying for, maybe cut out a few things that aren't relevant just to kind of condense everything because no one wants to look through a 5-page resume. That's not to say that all of your experience isn't important and you can't reference it later in an interview or a portfolio, but for your resume, I think you should just focus on the things that you've done in the past that really align with the job description that you're applying for. Tip number three is to include specifics, aka data. Hiring managers love to look at data, so if you can provide numbers, analytics, any sort of examples like that that can really prove the work that you've done in the past, major bonus. So for example, if you were a social media manager in the past and you boosted your brand's engagement by 50%, include that 50% in there. And if you have to go back and figure out all the data and everything, definitely do that. It's so worth it. And it'll also show that you're into data and analytics, which is something that is super big in our industry. Tip number four is to dedicate a section of your resume for your skills. So these can be like hard skills like Adobe Premiere Pro or Adobe Illustrator. Whatever your hard skills are, I would include those. This is my personal opinion, but I wouldn't include soft skills like good communicator or hard worker. I feel like those are things that you can speak to. And then you can also include things like certification. So if you're Google Analytics certified or if you are certified in SEO or any sort of Adobe program. Tip number five is to use action words at the beginning of your bullet points. So if you know how a resume is typically structured, you have the job, the date, and then below it you have a bunch of bullet points that talk about the things that you did in that role. So a rule of thumb that I go by is for every single bullet point, the first word I always make an action word. So things like create, track, publish, assist, anything like that, I will always make the first word of the bullet point and then I'll go on to explain whatever it is. So create content for brand social media. I just like to make sure that every single bullet point starts with some sort of action word. Tip number six is to use descriptive words. So instead of saying create content, you could say something like create compelling content, or even if it's something even more specific like create video content, create written long form content. Whatever it is, make sure you're describing it as best as you can, as concisely as you can. Definitely don't go overboard with this and don't make it like too many run-on sentences. Still try to keep it concise, but make sure you are being as descriptive as possible. Tip number seven is to show, don't tell. And we've talked about this one a little bit already. Like I said earlier, avoid saying things like hard worker, detail-oriented, motivated. You can prove those things in your other bullet points and skill areas of your resume. So if you want to prove that you're motivated, this is something that I personally would do. I would have a section on my resume for my YouTube channel, and I would put in something like post videos twice a week, every Wednesday and Sunday at 4 p.m. And that would show that I'm motivated and dedicated. Yeah, that was a little plug, okay, but still, you could totally use this for anything. If you want to show that you're like a team player, you can say collaborate with team executives and associates on XYZ, and that will show that you're able to work in a team. Bonus tip that I'm going to throw in here, make sure for everything on your resume you're able to speak to it in an interview and you're able to provide specific examples. So really for every single bullet point you should have at least one example in your mind of something that you can talk to or talk about in your interview. Don't like write things that you really can't bring examples about, because then it makes it really hard and nerve-wracking when you're trying to like explain things on your resume. And our last tip, tip number 8, is just how to beat the 6-second resume scan. And maybe I'll make a whole nother video about this in the future, but basically they say you have 6 seconds on a resume to grab someone's attention before they literally throw it away, especially in a competitive industry like marketing or communications. So how to do this, we talked about this a little bit, but make it creative and make it clean. Do not try to pack too much information on a resume, because no one wants to read all of that. Make sure you're using good spacing, make sure you're using pretty colors and not a million colors, make sure it's like aesthetically pleasing. Also, this is a huge thing, so if you're still watching, good for you. You have made it to one of the most valuable tips that no one ever talks about. Make sure you're adding your location and whether or not you'd be willing to relocate, especially if you live somewhere, say I live in Indianapolis and I apply somewhere in Florida. I have to put on my resume that I'm willing to relocate, or else they might just throw it away. Also, another thing, this is a newer tip, more of like a 2020, 2021 vibe tip, but if you've ever worked remotely, I would include that somewhere on your resume, even if it's just under your like individual job sections. Include that you worked in a remote environment, because that's something that's super common nowadays. The last way to beat the 6-second resume scan is to just make it a reflection of you and your personal brand. We've talked about making it creative and clean and concise and all of the technical things, but at the end of the day, you really want to make it a reflection of you, who you are, and what your personal brand is. So those are all the tips I have for you today. I hope this was helpful for you. Make sure you are subscribed. Also, I do want to say I'm not a professional, so please don't attack me if any of these things don't like align with what you do. These are just my tips, and I'm just here to help you in the best way that I can. I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. I'm definitely not a professional resume maker. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Also, check out my podcast, Atypical 20s. It is all about life in your 20s, and I'm sure if you like videos like this, you are going to love my podcast, so I'll have it linked down below. And yeah, subscribe, post notifications, new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. I think I've said all I can say at this point, so thank you for watching, and I will see you very, very soon in my next video. Bye, guys.